Tick-tock, it's time to rock. I was just thinking, bro, when we cracked open our cans, and you know how the cans have got all these different names? We should have grabbed some cans that had mum on there.
Yeah. What's mine say? Sneakerhead.
Sneakerhead.
I don't know what that means. Never heard of it before.
You got to be in the know to know what a sneaker is.
Yeah.
A sneakerhead is. I've got no idea. I'm not in the know, bro.
I'm too. Maybe I'm just out of that age bracket. Don't quite understand
it. Maybe we should. If they got a bit of time, because Brad and I don't have time for the next hour, but maybe someone should Google and see what sneakerhead means. I'd be intrigued.
What's yours say? What's your one say?
My one says an egg. So that's egg. Right. Yeah. So here in New Zealand, I don't know if it's a common word in Australia, but when you call someone an egg, that means they're yeah.
Yeah. I get it. Yeah, I've been saving my Coke Zero for the show, mate. So yeah, I don't try not to drink too many of them, but I have one or two a day, 2 a day. Have special occasions like now.
Bro, that's coffee, chocolate, and Coke Zero are my only vices, bro. And without Coke Zero and coffee, bro, life would just be, oh my God, it'll be over. Oh,
boring.
Imagine it. Oh,
it'd be boring.
Oh my Lord. But if Coke New Zealand, Coke Australia, Coke International wants to sponsor this channel,
hey,
get in touch with us.
By all means, we'll crack a Coke Zero every show. We'll even run ads. Yeah. Why not?
Why not? Good to see you, bro. I know you've had a busy week. And the great thing about Sunday is it prepares us for the week ahead. So yeah, looking forward to hanging out with you. We got some people in the chat. We got our brother Hugh Caldwell in the chat, so that's fantastic. Good to see you. And we also have Alan Toll in the chat. So I suppose this is a good opportunity for you to say something to your mum, bro.
Yeah, well, I've already spoken to her today, but a very happy Mother's Day to you, Mum, and to all the wonderful mothers that watch our show, and loved ones that are attached to the show. You know what I mean? Happy Mother's Day to everyone, to all the women, actually, all the women in the world, and to all the mums that are not with us any longer as well. I know there's a lot of people, including yours, Andrew. So happy Mother's Day. And happy Mother's Day to my partner and his mum and all sorts of stuff. Yeah, happy Mother's Day.
Fantastic, bro. I couldn't have put it much better myself. Well done. And, we like to celebrate these things here on the channel. It's not all sex, drugs, and rock and roll on here, bro.
Not until the rock professor's back anyway. So that's probably a good lead into a bit of a shout out to the rock professor, Andrew. What do you reckon?
Yeah, well, we've been speaking to the rock professor on and off, obviously keeping in touch with him. So he's on the mend. So we want to do a special shout out to him. So Simon, we look forward to hanging out with you, coming back onto the channel.
Yeah.
We've been doing a good job, though, filling in for the rock professor. And last week, bro, we had John ZD351 in on the show. And, he's got some good views on that show, bro.
Yeah, no. Obviously, always great to have John on the show. And he's very knowledgeable, sort of technical advice on guitars and stratocasters. And it's always great to have guests on. He's a regular guest. I could say he's a part-time co-host of sorts. Andrew, he's on quite regularly, but the show has had great views, and It's done really well, and it was a fun show too. But yeah, in the Rock Professor's absence, Andrew, we have been having a bit of fun, and I'm sure he'll come back and reprimand us all for all the stuff we should have done right. But no, we do miss having the Rock Professor on, and we're holding off on things because we want to do things with the Rock Professor, some of the ranking shows and stuff like that. It just makes more sense to have a bit of fun, while the cat's away, the mice will play, they say, Andrew.
Yeah, you got it, bro. And yeah, we do look forward to doing the rankings of the tracks. And I suppose this probably gives us a good opportunity, bro, to talk about the subject for next week's show, because you mentioned some things which dovetailed into that, talking about Jimi Hendrix.
Yeah.
And spending some time last week talking about the Stratocaster and what the Stratocaster guitar meant. And I know that you and I, a couple of weeks ago, were having a conversation about ranking a John Mayer album. And we had a bit of a giggle about that, because there are some great albums that he's put out, the John Mayer Trio, Continuum, there's some great stuff out there. And I said to you, absolutely, because I'm a John Mayer fan. And then, and then, bro, we find out our very good friend Philip Sace has gone into partnership with Damasio.
No, Seymour Duncan.
Duncan. Sorry. Seymour Duncan. Forgive me, Philip. And so what we're going to do next week, Brad and I thought we're going to talk about the modern Stratocaster Masters. So we're going to do a bit of a roundtable chat, and we're going to talk about, obviously, Philip and his new pickups. We're going to talk about John Mayer, give you guys a bit of a prep for John Mayer, what we think about John Mayer, and talk about that, because he did get some shit back in the day.
He did. And I think it had more to do with his personal life, which is a bit unfair. You talk about, people's music career shouldn't be judged on who they're dating or what they're doing at the particular time. And let's be honest, hey, some of the women he's dated, why knock him about that stuff? I guess they're just jealous. People get jealous,
Oh and some of the songs too, some of the pop songs he did. But we all understood, though, clearly there's a music side of the business, and he had to do that to get traction. But there's no doubt about it that he's a Jimi Hendrix and a Stevie Ray Vaughan fan. So we're going to talk about that, and also another guy who's we could have an endless list of modern masters, but the third guy we're going to talk about is John Frusciante, who sometimes, in my opinion, bro, gets forgotten when it comes to Stratocaster playing, because I know some people too, again, a little bit like John Mayer over the years, bro, that couldn't get past the full volume funk and couldn't get past the lead singer, because they were coming from a rock perspective. But it took them a lot of time, including myself, to appreciate John Frusciante as a guitar player, bro.
Yeah, I think over the years he's actually, I know he came and went, and then came back to the Red Hot Chili Peppers. But I think, over the years, especially since when he came back to the Red Hot Chili Peppers after he left them and then rejoined them, I think he got the recognition a little bit more so then than what he was doing previously, in my opinion. Well, from my perspective anyway, Andrew. But we will talk about this on the show. But I do agree with you to an extent where he doesn't get the props that he deserves, because a lot of his work is, although he does lean heavily on his influences, he still has his own styling and his own sound. He uses them. Back in the Peppers, he used to use a Marshall, Jubilee Marshall, which is one of my favorite Marshalls. He had a beautiful Stratocaster tone. I mean, he deserves a lot of props, 100%.
Oh yeah, and as a survivor too. Yeah. He's a survivor, and we love that story. We're familiar with that story on the channel. We love celebrating that. And too, bro, the guy's got a personality. He's and all three of them have. And so we're going to have, again, a bit of a fun show talking about those guys next week, and probably in particular, maybe John Mayer, because we are going to rank. Did we decide the album? Was it Continuum that we were going to rank, bro?
Yeah. I think we should do that one first. I mean, that sort of, in my opinion, it has to be, it's a masterpiece. I think it has to be ranked. Yeah.
100%, bro. And well, look, we could do another show right now on it, but I'll keep all those stories for next week. Can I do a quick shout out, bro, while we're on a run?
Yeah, sure.
Awesome. So we got our very good friend Ryan Hall in the chat. First comment up there, and he's popped back in. It's late where he is, so I want to do a special shout out to Ryan. Good to see you, brother. Our dear friend Hugh Caldwell was in the chat. I mentioned that earlier. Jonas Halberg, good to see you, brother. We have also, as we mentioned at the top of the show, Ellen is here. I can see also Gretch Zeppelin is here, and Johnny Heartbreaker. Good to see you, brothers. And I think we have nailed everybody. We're going to ask you, please, to do a couple of things. If you're watching on a replay, please subscribe to our channel. Yes, and I'm going to put Brad's YouTube channel on this link as well, and ask you please to go and subscribe to Brad's channel. And if you haven't already, if you don't know this, we have some Instagram accounts that you should be checking out too. So that's easy peasy. Brad Cook Music. You'll find Brad over there. The Rock Professor's there. Simon Williams 33. John ZD351 Music is there. ZD351 Music. And our dear friend Zach _ Zedris is on there too, bro.
Yeah. And you've got to update that, Andrew. You got to put your the 5150 show on there, the Instagram.
Oh yes, I got to do that too. I got to do that.
Yeah, because we've got to bump that. We've got to bump that up too. I mean, it's all part of the whole thing. YouTube, the Instagram, the social media, Facebook. Props to you too, Andrew. You're quite heavily active in pushing on Instagram, so more so on Facebook, I think, where I'm a little bit slack on Facebook, I must admit. So sometimes I get a notification pop up, and then I look, oh geez, I've got about 12 notifications there I haven't even noticed. So yeah, it's just I don't know. But I do get busy sometimes, Andrew, so that's no excuse, but props to you for doing it all, because it's certainly helped with the growth of our channel. 100%.
No problem, bro. It's what we do. And I look forward to talking to you, and obviously a lot of people in the chat about the show next week, because there's some great comments already about John Mayer, which is no surprise when you consider the taste of the people hanging out here with us. And also Johnny Heartbreakers. Yeah, we'll have all that stats. That stratocaster that he got was given to him by Anthony as a gift, and he's used it on, I think 4 of their albums. So I've got some stories I could talk, but we'll save that for next week.
Save it, because I want to hear them, Andrew. I want to hear them fresh. I want to hear them fresh on the day, date and time. I want it all, to be like my reaction to be live and real.
Fantastic, bro. Any news happened this week, bro? Musically that you want to do a shout out about? Anything that's come to your attention?
No, not that I'm actually. Like I said, I've been a bit slack on Instagram and Facebook this week. I've been very busy. Obviously, I've had a couple of gigs this weekend as well. So maybe, if someone in the chat has got any artists that's had a birthday that's worth a shout out, please let us know, and we'll definitely do a shout out to that artist. Or, if you got watching this back later, please give us some comments in the YouTube video, and we'll address it next week, Andrew.
Helena Harris celebrated a birthday a couple of days ago.
Happy birthday.
Yes.
Happy
So
birthday.
she may jump in the chat, and if somebody can remind us if we forget, if she does jump in, she's celebrated a milestone. So yeah.
No, yeah, exactly. And so it's been a busy week, but yeah, looking forward to today's show. I'm looking forward to this, Andrew, because I mean I know we've discussed Tom Petty quite a bit and Mike Campbell a bit on the channel. I know you're probably more of a fan than I am. I thoroughly enjoy Tom Petty and Mike Campbell's playing, but if you were to say who you're a bigger fan of, Hendrix or Tom Petty, of course, Hendrix, I know a lot more about Hendrix than I do Tom Petty. But he's got some wonderful albums. I've been listening this week intently for the show and trying to get a bit better prepared and get my head around Mike Campbell as well. He's a fantastic player. So,
yeah. Look, I agree with you. I think one of the interesting things about Tom Petty is that I'm not going to say that I'm a super fan, bro, of the guy at all. You know, he's just always been in the background of my music. You know, since I reached high school, when Damn the Torpedoes came out, and right through the 80s. And you know, there's going to be a couple of things that we're going to repeat here, because I know that we've ranked one of his albums already on the channel, between the three of us, you and I and the Rock Professor. So if we're going to repeat some of the comments, you know, that we made back then, forgive us. But one of the interesting things, Brad, you know, that I want to say to you to kick things off, and it's a point of reference, I think, for a lot of the bands we talk about. You got to remember, folks, that Tom Petty and the Heartbreakers, right through the 80s, it was popular music. It wasn't classic rock. It wasn't classic music, or you know, or it was in your top 10, Brad. You know, the Waiting, the song that they Stop Dragging My Heart Around with Stevie Nicks. All those songs were all on top 10, bro.
I know. It's amazing. I actually had this discussion with my drummer because we had to travel country Victoria for one of our gigs on Friday, and I was discussing this point with him about this music in comparison to today. Like, say, the popular music at the time was bands like Tom Petty. You know, that was what we actually were listening to as popular music and stuff that was hitting the charts. It's unbelievable. To think, for example, that we're all part of that. It's part of our DNA, Andrew. It's part of who we are. We grow up listening to this stuff on the radio. It was popular music, you know.
Blows me away, bro.
Yeah. I mean, at the same time, you know, into the early 90s, you know, we were listening to, you were talking about Red Hot Chili Peppers, John from Red Hot Chili Peppers and stuff. We were listening to Under the Bridge and, you know, all the Chili Peppers, Nirvana, Pearl Jam, Soundgarden. It was all part of just popular music at the time. It's amazing, you know, Guns N' Roses, all this stuff. And now it's all classic rock. It's and you listen to popular music, mate, there's nothing that compares with something that Tom Petty and the Heartbreakers were doing, or you know, the collaboration with Stevie Nicks, you know, and things like that. There's just nothing that compares with it, Andrew.
Yeah, and you know, and again, that always intrigues me. I find it really intriguing, bro, that, you know, that this music, you know, that we listen to, you know, once upon a time was, you know, on the top 10, you know, and Mike Campbell, you know, certainly, you know, through time, from my perspective, gained super recognition with myself. And I said this to you before, bro, you know, I remember talking with my friends, you know, when Damn the Torpedoes came out in 79, and they never really had an impact until about 1980, when their first single had some impact.
Yeah.
And none of my friends, now this is not bagging Tom Petty or Mike Campbell, but this is a fact. None of my friends were talking about Mike Campbell and as a guitar player in the same category as everybody else as a guitar player. You know,
Yeah.
he was just this guy in the band, bro, back then.
Exactly. I mean, I actually did a bit of homework on Mike Campbell this week and looking and mate, you know, sometimes I do tend to look at Wikipedia and stuff, and I had a look at, you know, Mike Campbell's his discography and who he's actually performed with. And as a side person, my lord, he's played with just about everyone and on everyone's records. I always, you know, now when I was listening this week in particular, I started to think he's like the Izzy Stradlin for Tom Petty, that Izzy Stradlin was for Guns N' Roses. It was like the, you know, the dark horse in the band, you know.
So,
and
a songwriter too.
Yes, what I mean. He's and a producer. And like Izzy Stradlin was always like that for Guns N' Roses, and that's how I see him, like that for Tom Petty. It was like Izzy Stradlin for Tom Petty.
Yeah. That's a super duper. I'm going to steal that analogy. I think that sums it up perfectly.
Hey, steal away, my friend.
You know, definitely sums up the guy to a point now.
Yeah.
When you look at Mike Campbell. So obviously one of the reasons why we're talking about Mike Campbell, folks, is that he about 5 weeks ago, released a biography. And I urge you, please, to go and check it out. It's available on the Real Book stuff. I'm listening to it on audio. I'm waiting for it to hit the shops. I just found out a couple of things, bro, that when you order some of these books, when they come out, you pay a little bit more for them. If you wait for them to hit the bookshops, you can save quite a bit of coin. So
yeah, I've done that. I did that with the Alex Van Halen one, actually. Well, I ordered through Amazon and it didn't go through, and I was a bit disappointed. And then I did my homework and I shopped around, and one of the bookstores here in Melbourne ordered it in, so I had to wait for it a little bit, but I got it, and it was a substantially amount cheaper. I was like, I never thought that.
100%, bro, and that's exactly why, and that was exactly that book too that's put me into a position now where I'm not going to order new releases unless Eric Clapton comes out with one. Because I paid I think about 69 New Zealand dollars for it, and it was a hardback. And you go into the bookshops now, bro, it's $30.
Yeah, it's disappointing when you do that.
I get it though. I get what, you know. I get what they're trying to do, but you know, so I'm waiting to get Mike Campbell's book when it comes into the bookshops. But one of the great things about Mike Campbell now currently, bro, that I particularly like is that and I'm halfway through his biography.
Yeah.
He's the custodian of this music that he made with Tom Petty.
Yeah.
And a lot of it, you know, Tom Petty made without him too. But Mike was always there in the shadows, even on the Tom Petty albums without the Heartbreakers. Mike was always there somewhere, you know, giving him the chords for a riff for him to go and take and write some words, bro. You know, he needed that kind of backstop. And one of the great things about Mike Campbell is he's just doing that with love, bro. There's no, unlike other recent biographies that I've read recently where there's not a lot of love. Speaking about, you know, that book that we're just talking about now, that other one.
Yeah.
What I like about Mike Campbell is, you know, he's talking about that honestly though, but with love, bro. Does that make sense?
Yes. So there's sentiment in what he's talking about. And obviously talking with, out of respect for Tom Petty. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, absolutely. Talking about respect, but also talking about in a humble way, because you got to remember too, guys, that Mike Campbell's from the South, and that has a big impact on who he is as a man today. And he talks about that often too. He was always the shy guy. He came from humble beginnings, Brad, so he knew what it was like to work. And again, like Tom Petty as well, and they saw a way to get ahead, a way to make a future was through music. So they devoted their lives to this thing at an early age and did it together, bro. It's just a great story. We're familiar with it, but don't you love it?
Yeah. I'm actually, I'll have to check out the audio book, I think, Andrew. You've inspired me. I'm looking forward to it. Yeah, it's funny because the audio books I find actually work quite well for me because I don't get a lot of time to sit down and read anymore. You know what I mean? So, like, I might be at the gym, I'll put it on while I'm training. I'll be driving, put it in the car. Like, say I got a gig where I'm 3.5, 4 hours out of Melbourne, I can sit and listen to a good chunk of the book while I'm driving. You know what I mean? So audiobooks, work pretty well for people like me, being so busy all the time. But, I'm definitely keen on checking it out now, Andrew, 100%.
Well, I can recommend it, bro, because if you want something to listen to, and what you'll particularly like, and I mentioned this when I did that first show last week with Pete Flynn, who's going to come on the channel with Brad and I next week. Not next week, next month. We're going to get a date for Pete Flynn because he's in a Tom Petty tribute band, a very good one, and he's also making pickups for Joe Bonamassa. So I know you. Yeah, we're going to make it work, bro, that you can come on and have a chat to him because we're going to push the carpet out and say, Pete, let's get Joe Bonamassa on.
Get him on. Get the king of the blues on. Well, he's the modern king of the blues, isn't he? Really?
Get him on.
Yeah, Jobo. We want Jobo. Hey, we'll have to start a hashtag, to push this movement to get Jobo on. Jobo on 50 on 50.
So we're certainly going to ask Pete. We're going to take advantage of our friendship. Look, you can only ask. The person's either going to say yes or no, or maybe.
Right. That's right. That's right. And in the meantime, we'll keep chipping away, trying to get Eric on.
What you'll like about this book in particular, and we like to reference it when we come across it, and it's especially very good from Mike's perspective, bro. He's very technical when it comes to talking about the guitars, and you would expect it to be like when he's talking about learning to play the guitar, he's talking about the chords. He's talking about the way that he learned to do Chuck Berry's double stops, bro. The way that he was using that band, East, with Mike Bloomfield. What was that band that Mike Bloomfield was in? The Butterfield.
No. Jeez. I'm gonna look it up. Or someone in the chat might be able to tell us. Let's have a look.
Paul Butterfield. Paul Butterfield blues band.
Was it? I'm trying to remember. Now I've just got a complete another brain block.
Anyway,
Butterfield Blues Band. Butterfield Blues Band. Yeah.
And how that first album, he was, listening. He was listening to the album, and he knew Beano, bro. And then he knows the guitar brands, and he knows the guitar makes, bro, that he was buying and that he was looking at, So it wasn't just like, Brad Cook went to a guitar shop and he picked up a guitar and he took it home with an amp and he plugged it in and it blew him away.
Yeah.
And like for 90% of people, that might be okay. But for the 10% of people, they want to, okay, so what guitar did Brad Cook take home? What was the amp that he took home?
Yeah. Well, that's an easy answer if you want to know what amp I'd normally take home. Marshall.
Yeah. But you want to know this stuff, don't you?
Yeah.
I do. And I like it. So from that perspective, Mike deserves some credit. But I've got to be honest with you though, bro. For a long time, I never sort of consumed or spent time studying Tom Petty. The music was always there right through the 90s. It was always there. It wasn't until 2010, bro. And I talk about this being an important year in my life because for a lot of things, but mainly because I was going to dedicate the rest of my life to this music. And Mojo came out, and there was a bit of a rigmarole, bit of a story with that Mojo album because Mike had just bought a 59 Les Paul.
Mm-hmm.
And he took it to their rehearsal space that they had.
Yeah.
And he pulled out the guitar and he plugged it in, and apparently Tom Petty went, "Holy fuck!"
As you do.
went wow. And so they said, and they weren't planning anything. So they said, we have to do an album. So that whole Mojo album, if you aren't familiar with it, go and check it out. It's underrated, in my opinion. And we have to rank that at some stage. But that whole album is built around Brad, a 59 Les Paul.
Wow. It's such a common story, isn't it? The 59 Les Paul, But yeah, that's so cool. Wow. It did. I'm just trying to work out whether Mike Campbell did a YouTube thing with Gibson. Did he do one of those, Andrew?
Yes.
I think I watched that last when it came out. I'm going to go back and watch that this week. But I remember that being really, really very interesting to watch. Is that the Gibson TV?
Yeah.
One with Mike Campbell. That's worth watching, guys. If you haven't watched it, and some of those Gibson TV things are worth discussing at some point too, Andrew.
Oh.
Yeah, but the one with Mike Campbell came out a few years ago now. I remember watching it, and I thought, this dude is so cool. Yeah, I thought he's such got a cool presence, and he's talking about obviously some wonderful things that we love called Gibson guitars. So, yeah.
So Hugh's right there. Yeah, the Paul Butterfield Blues Band had a huge influence on him. And so Ryan's asking a question. We're making a comment here. Brad and I were talking about this during the week too, Ryan. So this sort of leads us into the next part of the show. Often on this channel, Brad and I and the Rock Professor talk about the Traveling Wilburys.
Yeah.
And we are going to rank that album, their first album, at least this year. It's on the list.
We have to. It's a mandatory album. We won't spoil it because we want content for the actual show, Andrew, of the Traveling Wilburys, the first album. But if anyone's not familiar with who the Traveling Wilburys were, it was George Harrison, Bob Dylan, Roy Orbison, Jeff Lynne, and Tom Petty. And
Bob Dylan.
Yeah, Bob Dylan, Roy Orbison, Jeff Lynne, and Tom Petty. And their first single, what was it? Handle with Care. When that came out, I was just like, these dudes have just got together and wrote the coolest song in the world. It's so cool, yeah. It's just, it was fantastic. This was popular music, Andrew, when it came out.
See, 100%, bro. That's exactly what I was going to say to you. You know,
Yeah.
I was, when that came out, I was clearly familiar with Tom Petty because he was releasing albums right through the 80s. Bob
Yeah.
Dylan, to a degree, was releasing 3 or 4 albums, Empire Burlesque and Joker Man and stuff like that. And Roy Orbison, well, you know, he was this legend that you kind of heard of. Jeff Lynne was this legend that you kind of heard of with this band called ELO. And George Harrison. Oh, wow. You know, the Beatle, the man himself. So, and then we heard it. And I have to say to you, bro, I agree with you 100%. It was popular music. But I'm going to tell you one story, bro. I'm going to tell you one story now. I have to tell you the story. I knew nerds. I knew nerds, bro.
Yeah.
Who shouldn't have been listening to that album, buying and loving that album, bro.
Yeah. Listen, I bought the album when it came out on CD, you know, I mean, back in 88, 89. I can't remember when it was, somewhere around there, or 80. Well, yeah, it would have been released around 1988. I was in year 8 at high
88,
school.
89, definitely, 100%, bro. Yeah, definitely. Yep.
And I remember it was a period when I thought that George Harrison was very disgruntled with the music industry, and then he came out in this band singing. I was like, man, he's not disgruntled. He just wants to be playing music with cool dudes like Tom Petty, Roy Orbison, all of his heroes, you know.
And it worked.
100%. And there was no ego. They all shared the limelight. They all did their thing. And I always thought it was a very cool fit project for each and every one of those members, really. You know?
And there's some good videos on YouTube, folks. If you haven't seen them, I urge you to go and do some preparation for when Brad and I and the Rock Professor do that. Yeah. And if anybody else wants to come on as a guest and rank it with us, you know, there's a behind the scenes thing where they're talking about how they recorded and stuff like that. And I'm going to do one little spoiler, bro, if that's okay. And it kind of blew me away at the time when I saw it. So Tom Petty's having this conversation with Roy Orbison, and he turns around and says to Roy, after they've played back his vocals, and he said to Roy, he goes, man, that's one of the best vocals I've ever heard, Roy. That's amazing. I think you might be one of the best singers in the world. And Roy Orbison turned around and said to him, and Tom Petty said it, you know, he said it like mates, like how you and I are talking now, with no bullshit attached to it, because you and I, there's a little bit of bullshit there. But Tom Petty said without bullshit, he turned around and said, yeah, you're probably right. I might be.
Yeah. I remember, I think I've seen that. I think we should, I know the Traveling Wilburys album has been on our to-do list for ranking. So I think we should definitely do that pretty soon upon the Rock Professor's return, because I think he needs to be part of that one, definitely. I mean, I'm pretty sure it was on his list of albums to do, like it was yours and mine. So we should probably bloody do it, Andrew.
Yeah, well, you know, it'll be a tribute, won't it? You know, to three guys. Three guys.
Unbelievable.
You know.
Yeah.
Just incredible. And an incredible album. And I've got to echo your point too, Brad. You know, people were just blown away by it. They won Grammys for it. You know, it was number one in so many places. So, bro, I'm going to ask you this question, and I'm going to ask this question to everybody in the chat, and I'm going to ask this question to a lot of people moving forward. And I sometimes think when I take my dog for a walk, I have some good thoughts when I'm walking
Yeah.
my dog.
Write them
So,
down. Put them in your notes or your phone.
and I was thinking, what's the music industry done to popular music? You know, what's the music industry done to rock?
Mm,
And then I realized something, Brad. It's
mm.
not the industry. It's not the industry has done something to rock music or rock bands. It's the rock bands aren't doing rock music, bro. It's the band's faults.
Yeah, I think there's a bit of there's two ways to look at it. I think the industry is demanding something different that is stopping bands from doing rock music, and maybe there are some good rock bands out there that are not even getting heard, Andrew. That's probably one point that I think is why, but I tend to agree. I think the rock bands these days are, I mean, on my trip to Lakes Entrance down to Sale the other day on Friday, I was listening to like a random playlist, and Black Rose came on, Andrew. Yeah, Twice as hard, the song.
Oh, oh,
And I thought, man, I remember when it was 87 or something when that song came out or whatever, when that album came out. I remember hearing that for the first time, the song Jealous Again, and then, Twice as Hard. I heard that. I was just blown away by, and there were so many bands around the same time. I mean, you know, it was popular music being played on the radio, on the TV, on MTV, Rage. We had a station here in ABC called Rage, and they used to play music clips all night. And once it hit like 12:31 a.m., they would play an abundance of all new music. For some reason, they waited till, you know, like in other words, like here's all your popular stuff, and it was great music. And then around 12:31 o'clock, it'd be all the new stuff, mate, and you'd hear, you know, a new. That's where I mean, I heard the Traveling Wilburys. I was like, wow. And there'd be a new David Bowie song, and there'd be a new like it's not quite like that anymore, Andrew. The music industry's, and the greats would tell you this. The ones that have been around for 30, 40 plus years would tell you that little thing they call streaming. I won't say the name of the streaming companies,
yeah.
have absolutely destroyed the industry, in my opinion, when it comes to bands getting recognition. And I mean, it costs a lot of money to record music, guys, and for you not to make much, if anything, off that for millions of streams, it really doesn't make sense, Andrew. So it's more become now, popular music's become centered around a solo artist that's been produced a little bit more now, Andrew. Maybe that's what I'm seeing than rock bands. And if there are good rock bands out there, they're not getting the opportunity to be exposed. That's probably how I see it. Answering your question,
Well,
you
it's the
know.
rubbish that we had around in the late 50s. You know, Keith Richards talks about it, doesn't he, in his biography? I'm a little blue toothbrush, you're a little pink brush, and we brush teeth. That kind of stuff.
Yeah.
So and I equate that to the crap that's
Yeah.
on the top 10 now. So next week we're going to talk about Red Hot Chili Peppers, for example. What's that album? Blood, Sugar, Sex Magic came out in 91. Half that album, bro, we're here in New Zealand, half that album was on the top 10, bro. And it blew people away, bro.
Was getting played around the same time Smells Like Teen Spirit was on,
Yeah.
And they were on daily rotation 2-3 times a day.
Yeah.
Suck My Kiss, Under the Bridge, all those songs. And that album in particular, it seemed to be there was song after song after song. It was a hit. So yeah, That's a good discussion point, Andrew. That's a very good album to bring up and discuss. John Frusciante is such a, probably underrated guitar player, I think, for what he's. I mean, there's a lot of people that love him, Andrew. Don't get me wrong; he does get accolade, but I think he gets a bit buried in amongst some of the other talent that's around at the same time, maybe. So,
with my friends,
mm.
certainly, when that album came out and I was hanging out with dudes, it was like really, really popular. It was cool. We were like freaking out on it, bro. It was like freaky, freaky monkey stuff, bro. It was like excellent, and then some of my rock mates, weren't digging it. They weren't, they weren't sort of buying into it. Yeah. And I kind of got swayed by them for a while until, a couple of the solo, singles are released, and it's like, oh, you can hear that guitar though, bro. You can hear. But I have to admit though, I am a Frusciante fan. That album that they did with Dave Navarro, One Hot Minute, is just absolute rubbish.
It's a different. It shouldn't have been a Red Hot Chili Peppers album, and it probably would have been received a bit better. Does that make sense? It's like Motley Crue when they released an album with John Corabi on vocals. They should have just named the band
something
else, and it probably would have
well.
It would have done a lot better, because it's actually, if you're trying to listen to it like not like a Motley Crue album, it's actually a good album.
Yeah.
But I will say that about the one with David Navarro. If you listen to that and don't try to think of it as a Chili Peppers album, it's not bad. But when you put it up against Blood Sugar Sex Magic, with Under the Bridge, Suck My Kiss, Give It Away, Breaking the Girl, it's different. It's in a different ballpark.
100%, bro. And Stadium Arcadium, So again, that's a good point, bro. It's a completely different album. So push it over there. Push it over there.
And I mean, that brings us back to what we're talking about with Tom Petty and all that, mate. Like around that same time, I think I read somewhere that was it in the late 80s, early 90s. I think Tom Petty moved to Warner Brothers and released. Obviously, there was the Traveling Wilburys. There was the '94 album Wildflowers. And what was that song he released? That single. You Don't Know How It Feels.
Yeah.
At the time, this was all coming around the same time, Andrew, in the early 90s. So it was all popular music. It was all very upfront. That's what we're listening to on the radio. Unbelievable when you think about it.
Last Dance for Mary Jane, just. So,
I really liked that song. You Don't Know How It Feels. When that came out, I was like, this is cool, because he's got a bit of a swagger to his vocal, and it was like, it's cool, man. It's got something quite different about it. But it's quite sad when you think about, I mean, that Tom Petty passed away. That's a tragedy when an artist passes away from an accidental overdose, Andrew. It's it's always a tragedy. I know he was dealing with a lot of pain and stuff at the time. I think he had injury, didn't he, Andrew? He had to his hip or something, was it? He had a broken hip or fractured hip or something, and he was trying to tour on the 40th anniversary of Tom Petty and the Heartbreakers reunion, wasn't it? And he finished that, and not long after that, he passed away. So pretty sad.
Yeah, it is sad. And he, the guy was certainly resilient though through his career. His house burning down and losing, everything, mementos, family history, guitars. It was just, a tragedy. And then going through, one of the first guys to have a real set of kahunas too. There's a great documentary, guys. It's on streaming services. The I forget the name of it, but if you search for Tom Petty, go and check it. I've watched it dozens of times, and I think it's fascinating, and it goes through the whole history of the band. But they talk in depth about how, he's with a record company, and the record company that owns his record company sells to another record company, and he's saying, well, I didn't ask to be part of this, so I'll leave.
Yeah.
And they said, no, you can't do that because you've signed with us. And he's saying, but you guys don't exist anymore. You can't sell me if you don't exist.
Yeah.
Yeah. And won.
Yeah. Unreal. Unbelievable.
So I like that story too. I like that story, bro. I like the fact, that these guys, because, he said, look, it's my music. But I'm happy for you to take my music and make money out of my music. But I don't want you to take all my music and make more money than me out of my music, Brad.
But it shouldn't be that way, Andrew. And it brings us back to the whole streaming thing. Where's all the money going, Andrew? Hey, John. You know what I mean? I mean, really, let's be honest. I don't know what the going rate is for streaming anymore per song. It's mere pittance to what it should be.
I will do some investigations. Maybe we should, between you, me, and people in the chat, we'll do some investigations and see what people are being paid. And when we come back next week, we'll have some answers, because that's a very good question.
I remember explaining something to my son, who's doing a music production course at the moment. And I was talking to him about streaming because he was asking about it. And I said, well, unfortunately, some artists don't make a lot of money from streaming anymore. And for actually releasing music, they don't make money really at all anymore. It all comes down to touring, selling merchandise. That's where the money is, unfortunately. It's a different era to when, Tom Petty was selling records. It's completely different. You know what I mean? It's what I did say to my son is I watched this thing with Snoop Dogg. I think it was Snoop Dogg was talking about how can one of my songs have billions of streams and I don't have $1 billion.
It's a very, very good point. And I think I want to echo something that you've said a few times on the channel over the years. That's why you buy the DVDs. That's why you buy the CDs if you can. And you buy the vinyl if you can, because we know there's something tangible going back to the artist.
Yeah.
And, with the resurgence, bro, in albums and vinyl, CD. So one thing I can tell you, some good news about that, I got told, and I've done a little bit of research on, and it was mentioned last week when we did the first show. So cassettes are coming back, bro.
Well, I'm hoping that CDs come back.
These things are coming back, bro.
That's cassettes. Great. That's so cool. But I really hope CDs come back too, Andrew. Like they've never gone away, but I hope they become popular again, because I've got over 200 CDs, Andrew. I've got more than that. I've got mountains of CDs that I used to buy one every week. One or two a week when I started my first job. Just because I love music, it was just such a big part of my life. It was my 100%. Enjoyment. It actually became like a bit of a
ritual
thing. I used to get on the train, go into the city, go to one of the Rare Records or Time Warp Records or something like that. Go in there and look around, and then the bloke would come up. Oh, you again? Oh yeah. Have you heard this James Gang CD with Joe Walsh? No. Get it. Rides again. And then I'd take it home and I'd be reading the liner notes, this and that, put it on. And then when I eventually got a CD Walkman, I used to listen to it on the train on the way home.
Yeah, bro.
I'd just be blown away, bro. But I'm glad that I'm glad that when the music shifts back to vinyl, CD, an audio cassette. I mean, I've got a tape player still, a dual cassette player, yeah. And I used to like dubs. My mate would go buy an audio cassette. I won't name the bands because they lost a bit of money this way, so I don't want to get in trouble. But I put their original in, I'd press record, and I'd put it onto a TDK 90 or something like that, cassette.
Yeah. Well, bro, as you say, that's good news, and you're right, Alan. Cassette tapes, apparently are a retro thing. It's coming back, and people, bro, when you've got channels like us talking about this for 5 years now, and everybody in our chat talks about this, and for every show, exactly what you said. You have to have something. Nothing beats having the vinyl or having the CD case and reading that, listening to it on your Walkman on your way home, bro. Nothing's going to take, mate, you got something.
I'll be honest with you. I'm a big advocate for buying your heroes, the people you enjoy, listening to their stuff to support them. For example, when Philip Sace releases a CD, I'll go buy the CD. Or I know he released vinyl, or someone that you admire, like Lenny Kravitz releases an album, I'll go buy it. Whether I like it or not, I'll buy it because I want the artist to keep doing it. I want it to keep doing it. You know what I mean? It's, and because it's kind of like a collection thing. You start a collection like, I bought the first Foo Fighters record on CD, so I bought the next one. And then eventually I bought them all on CD, and I bought all the CD singles on CD as well when they came out and stuff like that. It just seemed to become like a bit of a hobby collecting them. You know what I mean? And then you basically, Andrew, you'd have, and same thing happened when I got into Black Sabbath. I bought the first album, and then the next week I went and bought the second. The next week I bought the third. Like before I knew it, I was into the Ronnie James Dio era, and I'm like, wow, it was another. You know what I mean?
It's another 5 albums.
And it's always great to have. I mean, I'll be honest with you, I listen to streaming while I'm doing things like training at the gym or driving, this and that. But it drives me insane, the streaming thing, because I have to make playlists and stuff now to actually enjoy it, because otherwise I find it's not as fun and not as, I don't know. It's like you lose. Making a playlist feels like you're making a mix CD or a mix tape. You know what I mean? It's pretty cool, but to actually just put streaming on and it picks what it wants you to hear and stuff like that, that's cool too. But there's the old days when I used to have my CDs out in a big bookshelf, Andrew, and I used to go, I feel like listening to, and I'd go through and go, oh yeah, I'm going to listen to that Van Halen album. I haven't heard that for ages. And you put it on, you'd look at the cover, you'd look at the liner notes while it's playing, Traveling Wilburys. I bought Traveling Wilburys 1, 3 when they came out, reading the liner notes. Holy hell, Gary Moore's on this one. I didn't know Gary Moore was on a Traveling Wilburys album until I read the liner notes. What they call him? Something. Right. They all had a Wilbury name. I've forgotten it. Anyway, we'll save that for the show. But yeah.
Yeah. But
anyway, Andrew. Yeah.
Yeah. I look, I'm like you too, bro. I'm nostalgic, and I love vinyl. I love CDs. I buy secondhand CDs when I can, as well. And nothing will take away the pleasure of actually having that physical thing. And it's one of the great things about buying books too. And you and I have mentioned this also before as well. If you want DVDs of films, if you go and buy, for example, the Complete Unknown off Apple TV, it may not be there next year, and you've paid them $24.
I was talking to someone this week about music documentaries and how important they are for me to watch a music documentary, even if it's of a band that I'm not that familiar with or I don't necessarily like that much. Sometimes I really get a lot out of it, Andrew. And Netflix when they had that little old band from Texas on there. I said,
Yeah.
you'll have to check it out. Obviously, it's not on Netflix anymore. Well, it's not here in Australia. And I'm devastated because I used to watch that all the time, mate. At least once a month I put that on because I just think they're the coolest band in the world, you
Yeah.
know? I always love ZZ Top, definitely within my top 10 bands of all time, you
Yep.
know, for me. But that documentary made them even more important to me, Andrew, because I could see the love and the care that they had for each other and the blues, you know.
So
And you don't get that from, you know, just listening. You do get that from listening to the album, but then when you watch a music documentary, it's so important that those things are readily available. I wish it would. What I'm getting at probably is I wish it was released on DVD because I would have
yeah,
bought it.
100%, and that's what I try and look for too. You know, I think, you know, and we'll keep continuing to say that, won't we? Live, if you can get the hard copy, then you'll be fine. And it's like the Kindle books too. That there was a bit of a story around that about 6 or 8 weeks ago. You could buy Kindle books and you could download Kindle, and you could transfer your Kindle book through the Calibre app into an EPUB format and load them onto another reader if you wanted. And Kindle said, no, so you can't do that anymore. And so people are saying, but I've bought that. But, you know, you've bought it, but you don't actually have any right to download it and transfer it to other things. So John's in a period of self-discovery here, bro. He's digging out CDs and DVDs he's had in storage for 9 years.
Yeah, that's awesome, John. I look forward to the day that I can do that and have a music room / studio set up where I've got all my books in one bookshelf, all my music CDs and DVDs and stuff in other bookshelves, and they're all around me, surrounding me, my guitars, the whole bit. So I'm a bit envious to that extent, but well done, John. That's amazing.
Yeah, bro. And I cut you off. You were going to say something?
No, it's fine, Andrew. It's fine. I was probably just I lost my train of thought now, so I was probably just waffling as I do.
Look, I'm looking at the show. We're going to wind the show up, folks. I've got a couple of things I have to go and do. So it's been a wonderful hour hanging out with you guys, and in particular you, Brad, getting together and, you know, sharing these thoughts.
Yeah.
Having a bit of fun, but also realizing the importance of it. You know, I'm going to keep saying it to our family here. You know, music's a big part of our lives, you know, as individuals and as a collective and groups that we hang out with. You know, music is something that consumes us all. You know, while we're doing other things in the world, I'm thinking about music, bro. I know you are. And I know, yeah.
Listen, I think about music when I'm laying in bed trying to sleep. I think about it when I'm asleep. I think about when I wake up. I'm thinking about making new music. I'm thinking about doing this. I'm thinking about starting a new band. I'm thinking like a different project or this. And I'm always thinking about music, mate. It never stops. And most importantly, I'm always thinking about my guitar. I'm always thinking, man, I don't play my guitar enough. I don't practice. I wish I had more time. Life gets in the way. I just want to be surrounded by my guitars and just live happy amongst my guitars.
I growled a good friend of mine a week ago through business. I know him, and anyway, he picked up, started playing the guitar October, November last year, and he, like a lot of guitar players, played back in his early days. You know, knew 3 or 4 chords. And, you know, it was through my influence that he got into guitars, you know, because he was coming into work saying, oh, yeah, all these guitars around, picked up the guitars. I said, mate, go and buy one. And he goes, I said, mate, even if you don't want to buy one, I'll loan you one. Yeah. He goes, no. So anyway, he came into work, we're talking. I said, how's the guitar playing going? He goes, oh, you good? I said, well, you know, what are you doing, you know? And he said, it was about 4 days ago when I played it last. And I said to him, that's unacceptable. Kevin.
Yeah.
He looked at me and he said, "What do you mean?" I said, "Mate, you should be playing that guitar every night." He goes,
Yeah.
"I got things I got to do, Andrew. You can't tell me that." And I said, "Yes, mate, if you're serious about playing the guitar, you got to play it minimum half an hour a night."
Yeah. Well, I'm glad you mentioned that, Andrew, because I need to kick up the ass. So I need to play half an hour every night. Hey, if anyone's listening that bombards me with too much work and too much this, so it takes me away from the guitar,
That's right.
Andrew has
That's
just
right.
laid the law. I
That's
need
right.
half an hour a day
That's right.
minimum
Yep.
to play my Les Paul or my Strat or my acoustic, something.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
You send it to me, bro.
Yeah.
I'll sort them out.
Good. All right. They're coming to you, mate. They're coming to you. And I think on that note, Andrew, that's a real strong way to end the show.
All right, bro. Good to see you. I'll see you next week. Thank you,
Yeah.
everybody in the chat. John ZT351, bro, thank you for jumping on. We did a shout out to you at the start of the show, bro. So thank you for hanging out with us last week. Got some good views on that show.
Yeah.
Everybody that's joined us, I'm not going to go through and say hi to you. You know who you are. You know that you're important to us. And Brad and I will be back next week. We're going to be doing an hour and a half show talking about John Mayer, John Frusciante, and Philip Sayce. Oh, my gosh. How the hell are we going to talk about three guys in an hour and a half?
Well, you know what I mean? We'll keep it. Let's just say we'll have to come up with some ground rules for the show, Andrew. Some guidelines and not deviate. Because even like today, we did deviate a little bit here and there, but we did try and bring it back to Tom Petty and Mike Campbell. But yeah. Sorry,
thanks,
Rock
guys.
Professor, if you're watching this.
Rest in peace, Tom Petty. And
yes. And last passing message is Happy Mother's Day, Mum, and Happy Mother's Day to all the wonderful mothers, past and present.